Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you're watching this from, and to the attendees that are in this call right now. Thank you so much for joining us on our October SAI monthly meeting. So these meetings are designed for members to share updates. We occasionally have guests who present their work as well. And so it's a way for us to connect and brainstorm new ideas. So my name is Faniel Wendy, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of SAI, the STEM Advocacy Institute. And today I have the honor of doing the presentation today, which is a journal club actually, and pitching a new project that we are undertaking, or at least trying to undertake. So hopefully this will be a lot of fun. And so before we get down to the presentation, just some quick updates. So SAI just finished its first quarter for this new fiscal year 21. Super excited. And I think, I don't know the full numbers yet, but we are transforming, the word says here, moving forward in terms of fundraising, in terms of new members. There's a bunch of new members that have joined us, and that's always great to see that. So I'm very excited to welcome them all, and also thinking about in this time of COVID, right, all these challenges we're facing. It's a challenge for all of us, and so I'm always, and myself, Noel, Jessica, thinking about ways to continue to supporting all our members on their projects and what they're doing as well. Another huge thing that started this past quarter was our SAI Fellows program. So that was a huge undertaking. We have 9 fellows that just started with us, our biggest class so far. And I think the next, in the spring cohort as well, will be even bigger. So very excited to welcome them all. And they will be pitching and demoing their projects on November 14th. And so if you're watching this in the far distant future, you should just go to the next video and watch their presentation as well. So without further ado, today I wanted to talk to you about this paper that came out actually 2 years ago. It was more an article, news article, titled "No PhDs Needed: How Citizen Science is Transforming Research." The reason I picked this, because it really laid the groundwork in discussing this topic of citizen science. It keeps coming up, and I think there's a lot of discussion points in there, and hopefully today we can do a little bit of that, and at least give you some, if anything, hopefully today you'll be energized to go and look this up for yourself and learn about what it's all about. So just, yeah, this was published in Nature, 23rd of October, 2018. And the first question is, what is citizen science? And this is I think that's probably the hardest question you can ask about this, because there are multiple definitions, okay? And we're gonna go through some of them just to highlight the heterogeneity here. They overlap a lot, but I think this is one of the first questions you ask. So in the paper, they summarize it as this active public engagement, involvement in scientific research. But if you keep digging around, Nigeria, for example, says citizen science is the practice of public participation. Okay, keep these words in mind now. And collaboration in scientific research to increase scientific knowledge. Okay, through citizen science, also known as CS, people share and contribute to data monitoring and collection programs. That's nice. Geo, and you keep going. National Park Service, voluntary involvement of the public in scientific research. So the new word here is it's voluntary, okay? You don't see anything about the professionals being involved, but I think the key here, again, is the public getting their hands and feet wet in the process. If you look at Wikipedia, of course, if you were to Google this very quickly, Wikipedia pops up. Community science, another word for citizen science, crowdsourced science, civic science, okay? Volunteering monitoring is the scientific research being conducted in whole or in part by amateurs, okay, or non-professional scientists. All right, so it doesn't stipulate who's leading it or not, but there's this active participation with the public, okay? The public, amateurs, community science, participatory science. You don't see it here, but it's another term as well, participatory science. And then when you look at Elsevier, and this one matches up with an earlier statement, the collection and analysis of scientific data by the public. So here it's even more kind of contained, thinking about they're collecting, analyzing the data. And I have a couple of slides that I'll show you all these diversity of these projects, because there's quite a few of them that are involved in this, okay? And so as I've shown you these, right, I hope you're beginning to appreciate that there is this diversity and heterogeneity in these definitions, okay? And in fact, there was a whole opinion piece written by this, Florian Heigl and previous colleagues, talking about this exact point, that, and the title was Toward an International Definition of Citizen Science, published in PNAS. So this just highlights, right? This is a huge, huge thing. And this is what they wrote, a section of that our opinion piece. Indeed, any project with public participation, with or without scientific rationale and participating science, can be labeled as citizen science, okay? But because no general accepted definition of citizen science exists, the national, international platforms listing citizen science projects face the challenge of accommodating considerable heterogeneity, okay? And I'll tell you, there is considerable heterogeneity in all of these projects, okay? Quite a lot. And so that led them to come up with a list, criteria, if you will, right? Because they were arguing that you need to have some sort of rubric or structure to help people, you know, what is a citizen science project? And a question I'll ask later is, who is a citizen science, for example? Who are these people doing this? Who can they be? So there's this paper that they published. Actually, they had published this about a year before they published this opinion piece here. Where they list the 20, okay? And I will spare you going through the full list of 20, but I wanted to highlight a few of them here. And I encourage you to read them because it's quite a long list. And as with lists and as with criterias, I hope your brain's already, you're thinking through like, hey, oh God, if you have a list, then people will just start following the list and you'll have other issues. So a couple of things here, just a couple of highlights. The first one, for example, is that there must be a stated scientific question, hypothesis, or goal that can be answered, tested, and achieved with the project, okay? Another one, number 3, new knowledge must be generated, okay? Example, improved understanding of certain relationships or new methods developed, okay? Number 3, and let's just keep going down. Number 8, just randomly here, the assignments of tasks must be clear and transparent. So transparency comes in hand here as well. Number 10, the results are published in an open access format, okay? Another word of transparency, right? Provides there are no legal and ethical arguments against doing so. And we'll get to the challenges that citizen science face as well. Another one, the project results are published in a generally comprehensible manner. Another one, number 17, the project must, again, follow this transparency, ethical principles, a lot of ethical issues that come through here. And then the other point here, clear information on data policy, governance must be published with the project, and participants must consent to this information prior to participation. Now, remember I told you before, there's considerable heterogeneity in the projects, okay? As with any list, there's always this fear of excluding people, excluding some projects that may not fit in your given criteria, however well-intentioned it was or may be, okay? And that is exactly the point that Jeremy, Dr. Auerbach and his colleagues pointed out in a follow-up letter to that. So it came about a couple of months after that the other opinion letter came out. So they responded to that letter, okay? And the title kind of says it all, the problem with delineating narrow criteria for citizen science. And they state, instead of focusing on specific criteria, we need to advocate for collaboration among all engaged actors, whomever they may be, to emphasize informed consent about project design features. It's an important thing here, and transparency. Notice how many of those points I was reading earlier pointed at transparency. in data collection and handling practices to indicate data quality and fitness for purpose. We encourage the citizen science community and associated collaborators to determine the best design specifications for their own unique context, enabling citizen science to achieve its full potential. So they were almost saying, do away with these constraints, right? Why curtail it? And this is part of that, I think, in this growth phase of citizen science, why curtail it? Let it burgeon and allow, be more inclusive than exclusive by creating this criteria. Now, you would think this would be the end of that discussion. It wasn't, okay? It wasn't, because Heigl and his colleague read that and it's like, oh, no, we will respond in kind, okay? And the title is How Our Opinion Piece Invites Collaboration, okay? And they argued, actually, hey, after applying the catalog by Austrian projects, and this, I'll admit, this was catered to the Austrian database of citizen science. We see a variety of different projects meeting the criteria, okay? So in fact, it wasn't exclusionary, but the key thing here is that this was for Austrian projects, okay? As you noticed earlier, that these projects are international in nature, okay? Many of them are based in the United States, Europe, but I think in time, we're gonna see more and more of them being built out from other places. And huge, I think, dearth is in developing countries, for example, whom I think increasing access, citizen science may provide an opportunity to increase access in really amazing ways. So so this finished their conversation. And if anything, if you want to take from this as well, that you can have these conversations in a published format, you can in these journals. Through these opinion pieces as well. And I have had the experience of doing that, which is a lot of fun, and happy. Talk to me if you're curious about that. So there are a lot of databases out there that are now tracking and cataloging all these citizen science projects, okay? The biggest one, I think, is scitestarter.org. You can explore that and you can search, you can categorize by location, you can figure out in terms of field. Really beautiful, but there's quite a few here. Citizenscience.gov, NASA is also on this too. They have various focused space related ones. Nat Geo has a few. Wikipedia also has a page showing case all these. Zooniverse is also another one that's well known as a database for all these projects as well. And they are growing, okay? So here is a figure just showing the repository for SciStarter up to 2018. I'm sure if we were to do this for 1920 and now, this probably is just going higher and higher up here. But so there is this influx, right? There's quite a few of these projects. They are decentralized, okay? The database that pulls them together, but people are essentially making progress in their own lanes. Maybe they're coordinating, maybe they're not, mostly not. And so just keep that in mind. And I think now there's probably way, way more. And here is a distribution of a couple, just to give you a flavor of these things. Probably the most well-known one, City at Home, for example, which shut down recently. And then this iNaturalist, which is an app. I'm on there too myself, mapping and sharing observations of biodiversity across the globe. Super simple. You download this app and you can take photographs. They have these all different missions you can do. And I think there's an opportunity there, for example, gamifying these things to increase participation and engagement. But there's a lot, okay? This point of this slide is there is a lot, and the diversity, take my word for it, the diversity is immense. And I think that is a strength of citizen science in really being able to tap into a diverse set of people that can participate in these projects. And what is the impact? And that's a really huge question. You probably might be wondering that. I won't get too much into this because I'm still looking this up myself, but a couple areas that you might think about this, and the authors of the main article point at this, changes in policy. I think in Europe, there's some movements to really integrate citizen science in some of these bigger societal issues. I think climate change is one, right? And the paper does go into one project where they have citizens put these sensors in their houses facing a specific direction and getting that data to the researchers directly. But it could, by having this participatory nature, right? More citizens, communities participating, they are active, they are informed, they know what's happening, they see the data themselves, they are part of that collection of the data. Could that impact policy? And I think that's an open question. How do you track that? I think our very own Adriana Bankston probably has insights on this. And I think this will be a really great question. People are probably looking at this right now. More transparency, absolutely, when thinking about the process, right? Right now, science is still mostly locked in that few set of people, the scientists that are locked in a university somewhere doing this work, right? So the idea of democratizing science, I think is very intriguing. It does present some challenges, which we'll talk about, but I think this, letting people into the process to struggle with the issues that scientists, have been struggling for eons up to now, right? Integrity, to reproducibility, all these issues are now at the forefront. They get to understand the difficulty and the issues that are at hand. And accessibility, of course, is a big one. Thinking about, could we, to the title of this article, like no PhD needed, right? And for me, I think that is why I am so fascinated and intrigued on how we could use citizen science as a tool. And mind you, there is a difference with science outreach, public engagement. They are overlapping, but citizen science, again, this idea of the active participation in research, okay, that then does overlap with outreach, but it is still distinct as a field. So however, there's always a but in here somewhere, and here it is. There are all these challenges that I've been mentioning already and pointing at as they have come. Quality, that's a huge one, right? With all these people participating, how are you managing quality? I think there's also a sense of fatigue in terms of how do you maintain participation over time. A lot of time you may get an influx initially and then they might die down, and this is an active issue that a lot of these projects are facing. Unless you're like a very big project, that still, you can still have that level of engagement that you need. I think the issues of ethics, reproducibility are all now sort of coming to the forefront. This field is growing rapidly, but the issues that are facing formal science are the same, I think, going to be the same issues and even other issues facing informal, in this case, participatory research that is involved. Data management, privacy for those projects that, for example, are using participant data, like maybe you're sharing your health information with an agency, or you're collecting from other people. I think that becomes really fuzzy in that space, and there's a lot of issues there where you need to be really careful. And then credit, which is an issue already in traditional circles of science, formal circles. How are you going to share this? Who gets credit and who does what? Especially if they're involved, let's say, in the design aspect of this, right? And there's a bunch of people in the process. How do you assign credit? But I think there's some really good examples that could be solutions, at least, that could be devised in thinking about these issues, and there are more, right? But I think it's a really, these are good issues to have to think about, and thinking about the next, decades, several decades, as citizen science continues to grow over time. And this is the idea, the idea of towards more professionalization of citizen science, right? Not just as this thing that you do on the side, but as an actual thing. Maybe, and the question becomes, is it a threat to formal science, right? The idea of, going and getting a PhD, you see a future where actually that's not needed. There are multiple ways to engage in science earlier on. I think these are all open questions. And there are all these entities now that are doing just that in terms of this professionalization of the field, whether it's through conferences. So publishing this work, I think, will help a lot, getting out there. And there are a few conferences that are coming up. Austrian Citizen Science Conference is taking place, has taken place. And then you have Citizen Science Association that holds conferences. And then you have something, CITSI 2021, actually, that's upcoming next year in May. You have journals like Plus One that has a whole section for citizen science dedicated to it, which is really good. And not so long ago, SciStarter had a citizen science contest, which is really good. And I think all these efforts are towards this idea of professionalization. And I think for me, the question becomes like, who are these people that are doing citizen science? Who are the individuals? And that question is, I think, is very open. I don't know if there's a database just listing the people. Projects are fine, but the people. And so we can get a sense of the diversity, right? Just like the way we do in formal circles in science, right? What is the demographics of citizen scientists, you know? And I think coming with these definitions about what is citizen scientist and who are these individuals, who can they be, these need to be figured out and communicated to people so that we can know where we all stand. And this is where it brings me up to my point here in terms of our own efforts in this space. So we have something called the Citizen Science Innovation Lab. It is somewhat of a secret project. It's like a public secret project. We haven't really done much in this, but only just set up the page and the idea, right? I like to plant ideas and see where they go. And really this came from my discussions with SciStarter, the founder of SciStarter, and in thinking just like, how can we help? That's the question I have. You know, how can we help? How can SAI be a force and contribute to the field? And so, as I mentioned earlier, lots of citizen science projects, right? Imagine here there's, you know, it's 3, but there's hundreds and so forth. Okay. The problem becomes that the problem space that they're having, there's basically a ton of issues that they're having, right? Whether it's thinking about ethics, thinking about marketing, right, communication, or actual issues, right? Problems with their own individual projects in terms of execution, software, hardware, all these issues. And of course, then one can argue that there's probably a solution space that one can jump into and thinking about helping these groups. And so that is sort of where my thinking has been in thinking about, hey, where can we go in here? The field is becoming more and more saturated with these projects, but where are the opportunities? And so this is what, you know, for our fellows, SAI fellows, I always say, find that problem, understand, do your market research, do your homework, and understand the space whereby you can create value and support. And so that's what, so this is a working, super rough, as I call it here, logic model for the Citizen Science Innovation Lab at SAI. And this literally is super fresh in my mind, and we're still working on this. But again, if I articulate the issue that there's this lack of dedicated spaces to assist citizen scientists, whomever they may be, and there's also another issue, who are these people? We don't know, but let's just call them citizen scientists, with issues and problems in their projects, whether it's communication, engagement, funding is probably a big issue, software, hardware, and many other things, right? So, and the idea, the approach would be like, what if we create like a shop of some sort, a lab, if you will, that can be a place where these individuals can come and they can present their problems, okay? And then we can be that we can assist in that the designing innovative solutions on their projects, okay? And so this is the framework that that we're using. So a hypothetical thing could be, you know, we're gonna need all these people with a different expertise, software, hardware. Funding would be an obvious one to have, of course. Space is a question mark, and I'll mention more about this in a little bit. And people who are doing research, communicators to help, because probably it's a big issue is communicating these projects because there's a ton of them. So since the space is so saturated, how do you communicate with people like broader public who want to participate? You can think of activities. So these are some main ones here that I can imagine happening: mentoring individuals, citizen scientists, developing courses, right? Hackathons and competitions. This can be one of the same here. In terms of citizen scientists can come in, present, you know, submit some issues that they're having, and then we can basically help and bring in a set of people that can help at least try to devise some solutions. And that idea is not new, actually. SciStarter had done a competition way back when I showed you earlier in 2012, 2013. And so maybe more of that, right? Something, provide more opportunities like that. And I feel like the Innovation Lab could be that entity. Again, we don't know. This is still all in the design phase as we think about what to do next. And some outputs that you may consider, for example, how many courses you're developing. And then for us as well, in that space, you can have all these really cool people. You can imagine that they'll also create something novel, all right, just through their own engagement. So these internally developed hardware, software solutions, right? Publishing strategies or workflows that citizen scientists could use to advance and propel their projects forward. And then a simple metric there as well will be tracking the citizen scientists clients, if you will, that you've helped over time. And again, pushing this to becoming this hub, right, of a stop shop that comes in, you have an issue or a challenge that you're facing and you're looking for help, outside help to help you move forward. And in this group here of people, you can imagine expanding as the needs or diversifying as the needs are presented. Okay, you go and search for people that can have expertise in that area to help them. So you can imagine this changing. It doesn't have to be static. This could be a rotating sort of people committee, if you will. And then lastly here, kind of what are we hoping to achieve? So this sustained increase in community participation and engagement in citizen science projects around the world, really. And I think this is the key point here, around the world. Can we communicate what we're learning to other folks in other areas around the world that are now building these innovations in their local spaces, right? I'm thinking, for example, in Africa, right? Can we increase and share this knowledge? Collaborations or accelerate collaborations. These are all potential outcomes as we create this hub where we are like actively trying to come up with solutions and collaborating with people like the SciStarter databases, Zoo Universe, and being this resource for citizen scientists. And so this is kind of concludes my formal part of my presentation and just showcasing the thinking so far around this issue of citizen science and what role SAI could play. And I do see this as kind of another program that would fit in nicely with the SAI fellows and also with our summer program. It has a distinct question and problem and solution space, but it as a complementary, essentially support system that we could use. And so right now, literally, we've done nothing. Okay, nothing in this space at all. It's just a empty shell, if you will. Some huge assumptions that I am making here, thinking about physical, virtual, or physical. Right now, assumption is it's mostly can be done virtually, which I think it can be done. Working with collaborators or clients, if you will, citizen scientists around the world virtually with their problems. But maybe that's naive and you may need a physical space eventually, but I think baby steps first in testing the idea as well. So yeah, any questions so far from the people that are here? And if you are watching this in the future, you can email us at scholarship@stemadvocacy.org if you want to talk more about this. But I'm going to open the floor up to any of the members that are on the call right now who may have any questions about this. Okay, Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is really great. So this space you're saying is dedicated to the actual citizen scientists when they come with their problems, or do you envision it being also a space for like the scientists who are organizing and running the citizen scientists projects?
That's a great question. It also goes down to like, who are the citizen scientists, right? And for me, citizen scientists can be individuals that are professionals and also those who are not professionals are there. So I think it applies to both. So if you're a professional doing a citizen science project, you're welcome. If you are an individual, a non-professional that is also doing citizen science and leading a project like that, absolutely. That's kind of my uh, sort of vision, if you will. But the question here that you raised, Danielle, is perfect. Like who is who is a citizen scientist? Very open. I think at this point we need to be inclusive as much as possible, I think.
Right, for sure. I was thinking like citizen scientists in general. Like I have never met anyone who's participated in a project, but I've heard of them.
Mm,
So I don't know specifically like how much dedication they feel to collecting the data and
yeah,
if they would like seek out or come for help. But I could imagine um, like researchers who are organizing this potentially coming and asking and trying to like get new ideas or something.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. I really like it.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, but you're right. So in the SciStarter database, it's a mixed bag of both the professionals, like the scientists that are leading these projects, but I like to think that there are some like non-professional that are perhaps leading these things as well. And I don't know that actually distribution. I have no idea, and that's part of the thing. I don't know if there's a database that exists with demographic or data with demographics. I have yet to come across it yet. And if there is, someone should email me. Any other ideas, thoughts, comments? Let's see. Yeah, just jump in. You can unmute yourself and
Yeah, so I think one thing that struck out to me was when you were talking about how, right now a lot of research is just people, kind of in their own bubble in a university.
yeah,
And that's definitely something that I've thought about before, but I'm thinking, like, I wonder if citizen science might actually change the type of problems that science is addressing, if that makes sense, right? Because you have like a different body of people who are not in that little bubble. So maybe the things that they're thinking about are different. So maybe the problems that the research that they're working on would address different issues than maybe what we already do in academia. And I find that interesting. Obviously, I don't really. I think it'd be interesting to see like if there is a difference.
yeah,
I guess.
exactly. And I think if you go to these databases I mentioned earlier, they are beginning to cluster them by fields, right? And
Yeah.
you go in there and begin to see the types of stuff that they're targeting, and it is quite diverse. I'll have to admit, this doesn't do justice. This is nothing that you see here. They're very diverse, and who are the people leading these projects? And to Danielle's question, yeah, I want to know this myself, so we can get a sense of the land, if you will, right? But to your point, the diversity of questions may change as more and more people, the democratization of science, right?
Yeah, I think that's exciting. It's
Yeah,
a
and
good
it
thing.
becomes like, what is their incentive, right? What is the incentive structure for people to participate? Because I mentioned earlier the fatigue that might be there, right?
Yeah.
I think these are all open-ended questions as well to this. And I think to adding that to the people leading the projects and also the people participating in the projects. I don't know if there's any data showing like who those people are, the citizen, the participants of these projects, uh, where they're from, are they all from the US or Europe? Are there places like where no one is participating because they lack iPhones or they lack the instruments that one needs, right? Because some of these things require that you have actual hardware to do them and they cost money, right? That's why there's a funding component to this too that is very active.
I don't know if you talked about this before, but do you think that citizen science could be used as a tool for education? Like as a high school student myself, I think that citizen science has a potential to be used to improve science education. So I was wondering, how do you think that it's a possible tool to be used, and how do you think that we can get young students to be involved in science through citizen science?
Yeah, so the first question, absolutely. And I think this is part of what I imagine about the increasing access, right? The impact that you see here, right? The accessibility, could middle school students become participants in this? I think so. It depends on the nature of the project, of course, right? But this is where you need to have enough diversity of the projects so that you can have different people in different places in their trajectory to participate, whether you are, you know, an older individual or super young individual, you can participate in something, and it being part of like science education, right? So I really do think that in terms of how you do this, and this is, I'm not sure really. I think this is where part of those issues that I mentioned, like I can imagine we being this, hey, I have this project, I'm trying to think about how do I integrate it in the classroom or something. That's a very direct issue that I would like to be part of, and thinking about and brainstorming with these individuals and coming up with strategies to try and do this. But I think some people are doing this. It's really a matter of how do we systematize it and share this knowledge with others. There is a platform called informedscience.org or .gov, I think. So informal science.org. And there, they are beginning, it's more on the science outreach part, but I think some of what they're proposing in terms of evaluation, coming up with really clear like metrics for assessing impact can come into play at all. And Arvind, since let me ask you actually, as a high school student, I mean, had you heard of these citizen science projects before? Participated?
Yeah, I think citizen science is increasing in popularity.
Mm-hmm.
I live in central New Jersey, and one of the opportunities that we have with the Sauerlands Mountain Preserve is they have this program where you can participate in the analyzing of water quality in streams and rivers by determining the macroscopic invertebrates and things like that. So I think these programs are increasing in prevalence, and there are definitely opportunities. But one thing I'm concerned about is equity, because many areas may not have these opportunities. So I think that by expanding these programs, we can get even more students involved in this area.
Yeah, that's right. And I think access is a big issue, right? And we just don't know the level of access. If some of these things require that you have internet connection or an iPhone or, you know, computer, then you're missing out a huge chunk of people that don't have those things, right? I think that's a challenge. And if you're thinking about low resource settings in those countries, I think that becomes a really key issue there. And so, to your point, Arvin, we need to, I mean, this looks like a lot, but we basically need more to make sure that we are covering all the different spaces. And are they equitable? Are they like, who are you accessing? And these are some of the issues, I think. So if I go back to the logic model, if someone has a project and they're thinking about how do I make this more accessible, how do I plug it into the classroom, right? I think those are the kinds of issues that would be really fascinating to work with them on.
Do you think that citizen science could be used as a tool to combat misinformation and general distrust of science in the future, so we can get more people trusting of data and science
Yeah,
than they are now?
I think so, because if they get to be part of the process, right? They see the issues, they see that they get to see like actually here are these well delineated steps that people are following, right? I think it may help, and it will be good to see once this is at full scale how it's involved. And now the challenges will be real, right? The issues of data, for example, quality, ethics, data management, privacy concerns. I think all these will be issues that you have to keep in mind. But if the people are participating, if the process is transparent, if they get to see how it's done, I think they may have a shot at combating misinformation and disinformation, right? To trigger these responses as a scientist. You're like, okay, wait, this is information. Let's see who is saying it, when did they say it, how did they say it, you know, where did they say it, and coming up with a rubric to help people process information. I think it has a shot. We'll just have to wait and see as data comes out on that point. That's a really good point on that as well. Well, it looks like you guys have shared quite a few questions there. So thank you for those insights. So this is a developing framework for us that we're building. We're going to wait and see how it turns out. Please do visit us at stemadvocacy.org to look further into this idea and other programs that we're developing. And if you are interested, if you are, let's say, a citizen science scientist, developer that wants to see what this is all about and learn more, email us as well at scholarship@stemadvocacy.org. We'll be happy to brainstorm with you. This is a brand new idea, so with that, thank you for entertaining. Alrighty, so join us again next month, November 14th. We'll have our SAI fellows pitching and demoing their projects, and I wish you all, see here. I wish you all a good day today, and thank you for tuning in to our journal club. Okay.